So it's official. BeewolfMMA is now a YouTube channel with 1,000 subscribers. We're at like 997, 996 yesterday. I went live for like 5 hours until we hit 1,000, and nothing's really changed outside of just that number being that number now. This is a huge milestone for the channel, but you can still expect consistent uploads from me. I'm going to be trying to outdo myself as far as quality goes. All the OGs, all the veterans of this channel, thank you guys so much for supporting the content. Even the new guys who were 998, 999, 1,000. You guys, I love you guys so much, dude. Thank you so much for breathing life into this project of mine. This has become so much more than I ever thought it would be. So thank you. I'm just a guy who really likes MMA. And I was able to use that passion to find other people who really like MMA as well. And you guys are all my people. And I really appreciate you guys continue to tune into the content and supporting what I'm doing here. I can't even put into words, man. Like, you guys are the best. So today I'm going to be revisiting PEDs. I'm going to be making a video about substances banned by the UFC. I'm going to be ranking them based on how much of a competitive edge they give the fighters who take them. I'm going to be going through each of the different substances as well and talking about what they do. This is going to be one of the more sciencey videos that I've uploaded as well, so do understand that I'm a guy who's graduated university with a liberal arts degree, and I'm not a scientist, like, by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to be speaking about any of these subjects through the lens of a guy who is well-versed in endocrinology. I literally just watched a little bit of More Plates, More Dates as I was getting into lifting a few years ago. And that's like my basis for understanding a lot of this stuff. So yeah, let's get right into it. I want to start with some pretty crazy stats. You saw on the previous slide, being the intro, that Nate Diaz was there talking about all of these guys are on steroids. You've seen the Nick Diaz clip as well, where he's talking about the same thing. Nothing on the ultimate performance enhancing compound, which is chicken, rice, and broccoli, which is responsible for all of the greatest physiques in modern bodybuilding. Nothing else. No extraneous androgenic compounds, just chicken, rice, and broccoli. Anyways, the stats that I want to talk about are how in pre-USADA, these are just per ChatGPT, but I mean, ChatGPT knows goddamn everything. So I defer all reasoning to this database whenever it comes to many different things. And I heavily lean on information that I derive from using this search tool, so whatever that's. Before USADA, like Pride era, pre-2015 in the UFC, experts believe that between 40 to 60% of the fighters were on some type of sauce. We know about Uberine, we know about TRT Vitor, you know about Chael Sonnen talking about he had more juice than Tropicana back in the day, and like feeling the strength of John Jones and being like, oh yeah, I know your secret because I have the same secret. All of the quotes from these guys, man, you know how it was back in the day. Everyone was cheating. They're all cheating. It was really like that in Nick Diaz era. All of those dudes were on steroids. We saw in the USADA era from 2015 to 2023, more stringent testing. The usage did drop overall, but different techniques for enhancing performance became more prevalent. So from 40 to 60%, we're now looking at a climate of fighters who are cheating at a rate of about 15 to 25%. Other estimates are about as high as 30 to 40% of fighters still being on something. And that would be in like regional scenes during this time, and also in other overseas promotions where there's not going to be the same level of thorough testing. But now we're in an era of post-USADA where it's all handled by a commission. And they're still catching people, yeah, but who knows if they have access to the same technology that the International Anti-Doping Agency had and that they were using whenever they were under contract with the UFC. Those numbers could be ticked up, maybe not as close to where, maybe as close to where they were pre-USADA. Because, I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And it feels at times completely random who we lose to these bans. Like, Alvin Guzzi Hines popped for steroids. And that guy, you would never guess, right? Not at a first glance, at least. And then in other organizations where there is no USADA, I mean, those numbers probably closely resemble what the UFC climate is looking like today, 30 to 50%, because they never had USADA overseeing their promotions. And it's the same deal with the UFC now. So it's very possible that half of all of the athletes that are competing are on some type of sauce now. They're all eating chicken, rice, and broccoli. So I'm going to talk about each of the different compounds, exactly what they do. We all make jokes about steroids, right? But like, what do people mean whenever they say anabolic steroids? Or whenever they say SARMS? What are they doing to help these fighters? Because there's a difference. There's a difference between what these guys look like whenever they're on anabolic steroids versus whenever they're on a SARM, or whenever they're just taking diuretics just so that they can lose weight and make the scales. Let's talk about it. So for each of these different slides, I'm going to be discussing what do it do. We'll even give examples of the different anabolic steroids or the types of PEDs I'm going to be discussing. Testosterone is the most prevalent one here, but there's also stanozolol, there's nandrolone, there's boldenone. In general, anabolic steroids are going to be increasing muscle growth and increasing hypertrophy. That's why we see this being used in bodybuilding. What all of these different compounds are going to be doing is increasing your testosterone levels. Testosterone is the difference between MMA and WMMA. That's the reason why Josh Emmett can throw overhands like that, or the reason why Francis Ngannou's physique looks the way that it does, and why it's so impressive that, I mean, it's nothing that's been confirmed, but we just saw the numbers about like the PFL, and Kayla Harrison came from the PFL. But I mean, Amanda Nunes, right? She's not supposed to have any testosterone in her, and she still throws hooks that way. And whenever Kayla Harrison double bicep flexes, she still looks the way that she does. That's why these things are like absolute mysteries to all of us, and why people do call for the fact that they're using anabolic steroids, is because this is the type of PED that's shrouded in like the least misconception. You take steroids to get jacked, you get vascular, your muscles get big, it boosts protein synthesis, you're able to make these massive increase in your musculature in a very short amount of time. If you're cycling correctly and you're taking the right gear, you get overall stronger, more explosive power. The thing that makes it so that you're not fatiguing as much is going to be an increased production of red blood cells. This is going to overall enhance your endurance for fighting and for anything else. That's why Lance Armstrong was taking steroids at one point. It's not, yeah, it's Lance Armstrong. That's the bicycle guy. I always mix up his name with Neil Armstrong. And for what we're doing here with fighting, roid rage is going to be like your best buddy. That added bit of aggression, and like added bit is an understatement. The massive increase of aggression that these substances are going to provide you with will give you a stark competitive edge over people who are not using these steroids. What I'm finding is, unless you're getting caught for like a cocktail of different substances, if you pop for something with like trace amounts in your blood, the commission is just going to give you one of these, look, and then you're right back to it. So let's talk about this being the case for different athletes like Miles Johns, who took Turinabol, and that's an anabolic steroids. He got 4.5 months worth of a suspension in 2023. He's fighting, he just fought John Matsumoto. People don't even know that that is something that happened and that he went through. Khalil Roundtree Jr., he went down for androgen metabolites, which this is kind of playing into the realm of SARMS more, but it was an attainted supplement. That's what we're going to see recurringly. Many of the different examples that people are going to be caught up with, they can just goad it off on a tainted supplement. Whether that actually is the case, in Khalil Roundtree's example, he turned himself in to the commission once he found out that he had actually ingested something that was illegal. They gave him 2 months in 2024. Oh well. Walt Harris, he was on all types of stuff in 2024, and they hit him with a 4-year suspension, exogenous testosterone, and anastrozole. He's not going to be able to fight until 2028, 2027. And then we have Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva has kind of an extensive history with cheating. He just got straight up caught for using anabolic steroids in 2019. And then he had to serve out a 2-year suspension, comes back, goes on a little bit of a run, and then he had trace amounts of drostanolone inside of his blood. But since it was, again, like picograms, we know about the classic steroid cheaters as well. Vitor Belfort, John Jones, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of those guys. In the TRT era, that's what TRT was. They were anabolic steroids that these guys were just railing. And they were just getting yoked as hell. And then they were fighting that way. But yeah, Bruno Silva, he got popped. He took a 6-month suspension in 2024, so that might have been like the whole reason why he was able to put on that fight with Alex Pereira. I think that was around 2021, whenever he had just gotten off of the suspension for the other stuff. So maybe he never stopped using, and then he just passed the test by some miracle, and he gave Alex Pereira a really hard fight while he was on steroids still. That's actually a crazy thought, because that's actually one of my favorite fights in middleweight history, is Bruno Silva versus Alex Pereira. And then the guy who was at the cover as well, you might have seen Alvin Guzzi Hines there, and you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, Alvin Guzzi Hines, he's serving a 1-year suspension right now because of drostanolone and also testosterone being found in his blood. But the thing about his example is he was taking gear outside of the UFC. He wasn't fighting in the highest promotion yet. He was in LFA. And he was still knocking people out while he was on gear. So, I mean, it's kind of dubious. But from what I understand, he cycled off whenever he signed to fight Hanada Deniz. I was thinking about what that guy's name was for so long yesterday whenever I was at MMA practice. Hanada Deniz, he took that fight on short notice. He didn't cycle off completely, so they did a piss test after he won the fight. So they did a piss test after he lost the fight, and they found trace amounts of both of those substances in his blood. So now he can't fight for a year, which is like unlucky. But I mean, he was still cheating. Next is EPO. Let me try to get this first try. Erythro. Erythropoietin. This is the most advantage that you can be getting out of any different substance. You guys who know a little bit more about this stuff can tell me if it actually is better than just being on straight up anabolic steroids. It seems like it is, and that's the reason why there's a bit more stringent testing for it. It's harder to keep under wraps if you're not microdosing it, but in the event that you are microdosing it, you can actually get away with using it, it seems like, and that's the reason why there's so much speculation around athletes, like whether or not TJ Dillashaw had been using it for a long time before he fully started blasting EPO whenever he was making 125, and he got caught red-handed for this. They slapped him with a 2-year ban for that. But there's also Kamaru Usman, and there's lots of speculation behind whether or not he actually is on EPO, just because of Colby Covington calling him the CEO of EPO. But outside of TJ Dillashaw, who's like a confirmed case of a guy who popped for this substance, the only other high-profile athlete who got banned for EPO, erythropoietin, is Gleison Tebow in 2015. So what EPO does is it fortifies your blood, right? And this is the reason why TJ Dillashaw was relying on it as he was cutting down to 125. If he wasn't already using it to make 135, because I mean he's Fat Tyler, you know, he's a big bantamweight even. At 125, he for sure needed some aid in recovery, just so that, I mean, the inevitable did happen, but there's a strong chance that he wouldn't have even been able to make the scales. Granted, he didn't use this substance. This is a natural hormone that's produced in the kidneys. EPO is made as a drug for patients with anemia. So think about what that is. Anemia is like low iron count. Your blood is weak. You have a low red blood cell count. Tom Platz was not anemic, you know? People with like terminal illnesses, they become anemic, and that's the reason why they look so weak and drawn out. What EPO does, it's going to stimulate your bone marrow to produce more red blood cells. So it'll serve the purpose of anabolic steroids and fortifying your blood and raising your red blood cell count so that you are aided in recovery. But you're just layering that on top of having whatever level of hemoglobin that you have as a healthy individual to begin with. So your endurance, recovery, and stamina are just going to go right through the roof. You can't really fight gravity in terms of you can't make 125 if you can't make 125. But if he was ever going to do this, using this as an aid was actually his best bet. And if he was railing EPO at a weight class that he could consistently make weight in, then this pretty much guarantees that you're never going to gas out there. So yeah, I really couldn't find anything on this. And the fact that TJ Dillashaw was caught just meant that he was getting greedy, because it seems like you're getting a lot of benefits out of this if you're just doing the microdosing, which makes it so that you can actually pass the P tests or the blood tests. Next, we're going to talk about HGH. What do it do? HGH it's used in conjunction with anabolic steroids in most instances. And the general theme is that all the guys from this murderer's row or like TRT era, whenever they were caught, they were usually on HGH, which, like, the reason why I put a bunch of headshots down at the bottom of the screen there is that it causes this thing called acromegaly. And, like, just think about what the Great Khali's face looks like, you know? Like, your eyebrows start protruding. Like, you start doing this, and, like, the sides of your face get broader. And that's why people suspect that dudes like Jailton Almeida... I need to stop doing that. That's why people suspect that dudes like Jailton Almeida are on this stuff, too. Is because he just went up to heavyweight and like his head looks kind of weird. What HGH is going to do is increase your bone density in general. That's why whenever people suffer horrible injuries, they'll take human growth hormone so that they can recover. This was something that Mirko Cro Cop did in 2015, and this was his admission post retiring from the sport. It was like right before he retired. I think he got suspended and then just quit. He didn't have a positive test, so you can send this under the radar too. Chael Sonnen was caught for running this in his stack of anabolic steroids and whatever the heck else all these guys from the TRT era were on. Around 2014 is whenever things were starting to like shift for them and they were getting their bans. Bigfoot Silva was a part of this regime, and also Vitor Belfort. Vanderlei too was on this stuff. John Jones, of course, was on this stuff too. I mean, look at how broad the eyebrows are. The eyebrow ridge, you can really even see it in like that portrait photo of Bigfoot Silva. The chin bone, the widening of the cheekbones, the forehead is just, it looks Neanderthalic a little bit. That's what I associate this PED with. From what I understand, this is kind of just like worse EPO. I'm not entirely sure whether or not anabolic steroids or EPO is better, but this seems to just cover all the different things that EPO covers, HGH, but it's just a little bit worse. But if you do microdose it, it's similarly hard to detect. You might even just be able to blast this and like still get away with pissing hot, because guys have done it before. The reason why they call him TRT Vitor, I'm coming to find out, is because he actually got like a therapy use exemption for these substances, for growth hormone and anabolic steroids, because he had hypergonadism, which means like excessively low testosterone levels. And this is the thing about taking exogenous forms of testosterone. Your natural production gets shot. So whenever you cycle off, if you were to blast like Trin right now, and just take Trin for like 3 months, and then get off of Trin, your natural testosterone levels may be like sub 100, at which point you're going to be in a state of hypergonadism. They probably just knew that this guy was a bigger draw for the company whenever he was cheating. So they were like, okay, you just go right back on steroids. We're going to totally let you do this. So Vitor Belfort was probably just like, and then just got back on the gear and blinded Michael Bisping and did all types of nefarious things while he was cheating. Clear as day. And getting knocked out by dudes like Lyoto Machida and Anderson Silva, who both themselves were cheating. It really was like the Wild West back in the day. I really hope that we never return to those times, because that was just a health and safety risk to everyone involved. The next substance that we're going to talk about is diuretics. And diuretics kind of is what you think. I mean, example of these substances are going to be hydrochlorothiazide. Oh my god. Hydrochlorothiazide. Oh my god, please. Hydrochlorothiazide, furosemide, amiloride, acetazolamide. And what do these things do? They're for rapid weight cutting. If you need to make a weight class, not even necessarily with the intent of retaining muscle, because that's not what this is for. This is for urinating gallons so that you can make the scales. You're essentially removing all the water in your body. These types of drugs are used often in the final 24 to 48 hours before weigh-in. Another reason for why these substances are used is because you use these to dilute the urine that may be tainted of other substances as well. This is probably how people are passing these tests whenever they're microdosing the other banned substances. They'll just take some HCTZ right before USADA shows up. But this is the thing though, they have tests to be able to like catch this as well. So you can get caught for using a substance that you hope to use to make it so that the other illegal substances that you're using aren't detected, which is like doubly embarrassing. The GOAT, Rogerio Bontorin, he used HCTZ and he caught a 1-year suspension from 2021 into 2022, and then he came back and he just started losing fights and then got cut from the UFC, and then he went to Risen, and he's actually been frying up in grappling now. That's what he's doing with this time. ADCC grappling. He's not even competing in MMA, I don't think. Douglas Silva de Andrade. I actually saw this not too long ago. May 2nd, 2025, he got a 6-month ban. It's become effective pretty like recently though, so he's going to be serving out a 6-month sentence. This was likely just so he could make weight again. And then both Vitor Belfort and Anderson Silva were caught for using diuretics in conjunction with a positive steroid test. These guys were probably getting so arrogant after a while of not being caught. They were just taking egregious levels of steroids and then just using the diuretics to be like, hey, I'm going to get away with this. And they just got caught. And it's like, the next set of substances that we're going to talk about are beta-2 agonists, clenbuterol and albuterol. And I saw this and I was like, whoa. I grew up, I mean, I'm not sure how that works as far as like growing out of asthma. Maybe I was just being a wuss whenever I was a kid, just being a shrimp. But I grew up with an albuterol pump. There's somewhere I could pull. I got one right here. This is literally a banned substance in the UFC. And that's crazy because the thing that I immediately think of whenever I see this pump inside of my drawer, whenever I open it, is that time that Greg Hardy used his inhaler in the corner in between rounds. And the fight that he won after using that inhaler got ruled to a no contest. And he tried to appeal the win, but like, no, this is a banned substance. This is treatment for asthma and also for like smokers with COPD. It's a bronchodilator. So what it's meant to do is just relax your airway so you can breathe better. But apparently whenever you use it in higher doses, it like has performance enhancing qualities. And I never tried to abuse it, but I didn't understand that like, this is something that you could abuse this like other substances and get performance benefits out of it. Not that it would have mattered to me anyways at that time. But there's like some weird clauses that are involved in this. Like you can only do like 6 to 8 pumps per like 6-hour periods or something. Like if you were to get hopped up on your albuterol pump, like before you go out into the cage, like that could be grounds for you catching a ban and getting the win overturned. There's potential for fat loss and lean muscle support. I feel like a lot of these different like side effects of abusing these substances are meant for clenbuterol, which actually is like a tablet that you ingest versus the albuterol pump. But I did actually see that there are performance benefits attached to the inhaler, which is funny. But even funnier is that some guys will get slapped with failed tests, especially from countries like China and Mexico, because they're putting clenbuterol in the meat. So they get trace amount of substances in the food that they're eating. Fighters like Zhang Weili, Li Jingliang, the Leech, and the cursed photo of the suit there. And then Brandon Moreno as well. They all popped. And I bet they were so scared whenever they got the failed test back. But yeah, they account for this. So, I mean, again, slap on the wrist because it was just contaminated meat in all 3 instances. I was super blown away by that. The only failed test that I could find that was related to this in like the last 5 years that came with the suspension was Talia Santos in PFL. She got caught for using oxandrolone, which is an anabolic substance, in conjunction with clenbuterol. So like, what kind of stack is that? Unless she just has like some respiratory issues. So yeah, she just caught a 6-month suspension in 2025 for that, using clenbuterol. All right, so last but not least, this is going to be the most popular type of performance enhancing drugs I'm finding. We have SARMs, selective androgen receptor modules. We have different substances like Ostarine, Ligandrol. Ostarine is like the big one because it's just making its way into everybody's substances and everyone's getting a 6-month suspension for it, it feels like. Andarine, testosterone. They all have different coded names. Like there's Rad 140, I think that's testosterone. There's like LGD 4033, which is what Azamat Mirzakhanov was taking. This is like anabolic steroids light version. They're going to contribute to muscle growth and lean mass being added onto your frame, strength and power the same way that, maybe not the same way that anabolic steroids do, but you take it with the same intent. Even though if you're involved in the gym community, you've seen some real horror stories that related to, especially like Rad 140 use, where guys take it and just bloat max, and they're just like, look like pieces of chewed up gum after they're done with their cycle of SARMs, and they're like covered in acne, just gross stuff. But yeah, you're reaping pretty much all the same benefits of anabolic steroids out of this. But the thing that's crazy is that since these peptides are so unregulated, they're so accessible. Like you go on to Amazon and buy like a lot of the different things that we're talking about. Pretty much all of the substances that are inside of those parentheses right now, you could just access online. You could order them just from some seller online. No identification required, just comes to your door. You get endurance effects, but nothing in comparison to EPO. You're gonna get mild endurance effects as well. These are just gonna be a result of your body performing at a higher level due to the androgens binding to your bones and muscles. I'm not sure with the decreased amount of lab testing that's gone into the release of these substances, there's inconsistencies in being able to test for them as well. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but it feels like everybody's getting caught up for these right now. So, I mean, we just name a few. This is super recent. In the post-USADA era even, these guys like Kyler Phillips, they're getting caught for Ostarine. Sean O'Malley has popped for these tainted substances as well. Ramazan Timarov might be another name I could have added here. Alessio Zaleski dos Santos caught a 1-year suspension in 2022 for Ostarine. D-Rod got 3 months in December 2023 for Ostarine as well. Azamat Mirzakhanov, he got 6 months in November 2024 for LGD 4033. He took a fight with Brinson Ribeiro not too long ago, and that was his first fight off of that suspension. He's going to be fighting at UFC 321 against Alexander Rakic, and that'll be a second fight coming off of the suspension for using. So let's rank them. From what I understand, it goes anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids are like the holy grail of performance enhancing drugs just because of the added bonuses of testosterone that you get from those. But from the perspective of pure performance, EPO is probably just as good, if not better. Right below that is growth hormone, and the tier below that is SARMs, and then in C tier is going to be diuretics and beta-2 antagonists. Diuretics just because they're not really going to help you in any other way other than dehydrating your body to make a weight cut easier, and then beta-2 antagonists just because they only seem helpful to a certain group of people who may or may not have respiratory issues, and a lot of those cases aren't even cases. So the reason why I made this video at all is just because I was super curious about Ostarine. Why is it that so many people are being branded as cheaters for consuming Ostarine? And after doing more research, I found out it's because the substance is pretty ubiquitous. It's in so many different over-the-counter supplements that if you are a fighter and you're working with a nutritionist, it's very possible that you've been given a substance unknowingly by either party, by a guy who's in your camp, and just like, here, take this. Take these amino acids, you know, we're cutting down on calories, so it's important that your protein synthesis is still occurring. Take these amino acids, and it has Ostarine in it, and now you've consumed a tainted substance that makes it so that you're liable for a 6-month ban. Ryan Garcia actually got popped for those 2 supplements right there, amino acids and that super carb formula. It's crazy that they are able to package this type of stuff in over-the-counter supplements. I wonder if the testing policy will change to be more lax on this, because obviously if there's super high levels that would lead you to believe that the fighter who popped for this is abusing it, then that may be worth considering a suspension. But if it's trace amounts and you're making the assumption that they were at a time where they've just cycled off, and that's the reason why you're only able to find small amounts of the substance in their blood, I'm not sure if that warrants a 6-month ban. especially as people are realizing, oh my god, this had Ostarine in it, and they're turning themselves in. I may need to just take this for 3 months and then get back to you guys. Looking at what it does, pretty much all the same things that the SARMs that we had just got done talking about do. It's just insane how readily accessible it seems to be. What do you guys think about the bro science that I've shared in this video? Rate my findings in the comment sections. Correct any of the information that I got wrong, please. And also, I just want to extend a quick thank you again for 1,000 subscribers. If you did make it to this point in the video, please do like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you fellas in the next upload. Please do have a wonderful day. Misfits Boxing, I'm going to be streaming for that. I'm going to have a stream. We're going to hang out and watch the boxing matches. I'm going to do a fight companion. So I will catch you fellas in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.